is DK Metcalf a top 5 or even a top 3 wide receiver in the league? So before I give my thoughts on it, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah. So coming out of college, I think a lot of people looked at Seattle as the best destination for DK Metcalf because Carroll's just been he's really been able to get the most out of guys that could really do one thing, and I think a lot of people looked at him one dimensionally, and there were a lot of concerns that he was just one of those athletic freaks that always kind of like a John Ross who performs well at the combine and it really makes all the cut on paper, but does he look good in the game? Not really. He's very rigid sometimes. But he's really grown. I think after that, he had a really good first year where he kind of showed everyone that it wasn't
Mm.
just a one. He's not just a one trick pony. He's able to do a lot more, a lot different things. But I think really he's especially this year he's become almost the one of the best receivers in the league, and I think probably it comes down to some underperforming. Michael Thomas has been injured, Julio Jones has to play on the Falcons, so I
Mm-hmm.
think it comes down to some of that. But his stock has risen hiddenly, especially with the fact that Russell Wilson's going to go for MVP this year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Russell Wilson's campaign is honestly something special. He's averaging. I heard a stat during the game. He's averaging every 10 throws, he throws at least one touchdown, which
Yeah,
is ridiculous when you put it into perspective. But he's obviously putting up crazy numbers. We also know that there's another receiver on that team, Tyler Lockett, who might, I don't know, he might even be better than DK Metcalf. But this is what we're here to debate, you know? Okay, so I'm going to give you a list of players. We're going to go through it and see where DK Metcalf falls, say in the top 10 receivers. Because is he a top 5? For me, I don't think so. Maybe for you. What do you think he lands in your top 5?
if you're going based off performances this year, then yes. But I would say if he continues to grow next year, if he does better than this year and next year, then yeah, I'd put him in top 5. But right now, I'd put him in top 10. I don't. I wouldn't go all the way, especially looking at the list. I wouldn't go all the way and say DK Metcalf's the top 5.
Yeah, so my first wide receiver, my number 1 wide receiver in the NFL is Davante Adams of the Green Bay Packers. I just feel like he is the absolute best route runner and he has crazy hands. So he had 2 back-to-back great weeks. He had a 3 touchdown game and followed by another 3 touchdown game. I'm not sure if he got 2 or 3 today, but he's balling. Like honestly, he's probably one of the premier receivers in the league. For me, the premier receiver in the league, followed by DeAndre Hopkins, who people were sleeping on him a little bit, especially fantasy wise going into the season. He was slipping into the second round of drafts sometimes, but DeAndre Hopkins definitely is proving everyone wrong, showing that regardless of where he is, he's still going to put up numbers. So DK is not better than those two, for me at least. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for those two, no. Especially, I mean, look, DeAndre Hopkins has been a top 3 in the league for the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Davante Adams, I think, gets a little slept on, but especially with this year, with Rogers exploding this year, basically, it's kind of easy to see how creative a wide receiver he is. So I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that would be my list right now, but yeah, I don't think DK is better than those two.
Okay, so then let's talk about the controversial one, Michael Thomas, who's missed basically the entire whole season so far, other than the first game, just due to injury, due to locker room controversy. He practiced all week this week and still didn't suit up for the team. So Michael Thomas, on paper, is a top 3 receiver, maybe even top 2. He's up there. But if we're talking looking at season alone, he hasn't done anything. But is Michael Thomas better than DK Metcalf? DK Metcalf is a workhorse. DK Metcalf can do it all. But as Michael Thomas's Instagram handle says, you cannot guard Mike. He is literally he is what Antonio Brown was when Antonio Brown was in his prime. We're getting glimpses. I know the Devo comparisons are gonna be there too, but Michael Thomas is really something special. So I for me, I just can't say DK is better than Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both very versatile. Of course, the joke is that Michael Thomas only runs slant routes, which is,
Hmm.
I mean, to an extent, I remember seeing some crazy stat that like, if you take I'm sure it was not true, but if you take all of his slant routes out, he only scores like 2 touchdowns and has 200 yards. I'm sure that's not true. Like, but
He is
I
the
mean,
slant king. He is the
yeah,
slant king.
but he's not one of those system wide receivers. He really stands out and shows that he is one of the best wide receivers in the league on his day. Now, it's never been his day this season. As someone who has Michael Thomas in fantasy, uh, it's never been good to have him. But I think, if you're going just off of talent alone, DK, again, if he makes the same strides, you could have that argument. But right now, knowing what we've seen with Michael Thomas over the past couple of years, and seeing what DK is doing now, I'd have to put Michael Thomas over DK.
Yeah, so let's move on. I'm in agreement with you there, friend. I just want to put that on the record. Um, let's move on to our fourth receiver that we're going to compare to DK Metcalf. Tyree Kill. This is interesting because I'm going to take a little interesting comparison here. I'm going to say Tyree Kill is a shorter, faster version of DK Metcalf. Um, they both have great hand. They both have great QB. They take deep shots, and they're there as a security blanket for your quarterback. The thing is, Tyreek Hill can burn any defender in the league. Maybe even DK can, but just less effective. Tyreek Hill is in the debate for the fastest player in the NFL, so it's kind of hard to actually see. There were talks that these two might race in the offseason, so I hope that actually happens. But I think Tyreek Hill is just better because of the fact that nobody can even keep up with him. I know DK's still he's up there in speed, but I think it's because of his strides. Tyreek Hill takes shorter strides, but covers more ground with that. But DK just takes long strides and is super consistent. I think it just comes down to speed here. I know the height doesn't really affect Tyreek Hill because he can still catch the deep bomb or take a short screen pass and blow up and go for a touchdown when you're least expecting it. So I'm gonna have to give the edge to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. It's one of those things where is you look at who's more guardable. They're two very almost unguardable players with DK and Hill, but Tyreek Hill. I mean, you said it the best. And look, speed doesn't always matter. Of course, I'm a big fan of Matt Breida, but he doesn't get any touches anywhere he
Mm-hmm.
goes. But with Tyreek Hill, he's able to get open, even if he's not any as tall as the guys he's going up against. He's still able to make plays. I think with Tyreek Hill, you got to put him over DK, especially with knowing what he knows, knowing of Tyreek Hill that we know now. I think you got to put him over DK.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not gonna say this, but he has had success in the NFL, winning a Super Bowl last season. Not necessarily due to his contributions to the team, but he definitely was a large part in that team's success. And as a player, I rather have Tyreek Hill on my team this season than DK Metcalf just because of that go route deep threat when you need it most.
Yeah,
Speaking of another big receiver who is really good at those go routes, but also catches the ball anywhere on the field, the most reliable receiver in the league. That is the best way to put it. If you haven't gotten it by now, it's Julio Jones for the Atlanta Falcons. Julio Jones, year in and year out, is honestly in the conversation for the best receiver in the
yeah,
NFL. Um, he's kind of the antithesis of a player like Davante Adams, who gets the short yard plays and the touchdowns, but Julio gets the long plays and no touchdowns. It seems like he's allergic to the end zone every year. So Julio, looking at skill wise, not script wise, I feel just Julio's one of the most talented receivers ever, and it'd be kind of a shame to put DK above him right now, just because of not only resume but success. Like this guy on almost every route he gets open. Probably one of the best hands in the league, if not the best, behind Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins. So Julio, it's getting close. Let me tell you, Ben, it's getting
yeah,
close. But uh, he's not better than Julio. He's not in my top five.
yeah. I I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna say Julio probably rounds out the top 5 as well. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're looking at this season, then maybe not. But even then, he's been on always a subpar. It seems like Atlanta Falcon, like they never perform to their standards. It seems like so. With Julio Jones, I think that's why when we talked about last time, if he gets traded, how great of an asset he'll be to, like, I think we said Cleveland Browns, how great of an asset he'll be to like a Cleveland Browns team if they're able to get it, because he's almost a vacuum every time you
Mm-hmm.
throw him the ball. Even in a down year like this, he's able to have outstanding performances. Of course, Minnesota jumps out. He had 2 touchdowns, 137 yards, and it comes down to, I think, if you throw Julio the ball, he'll catch a lot more than DK.
Mm-hmm.
And DK's getting up there. I know a lot of people looked at, or at least Randy Moss said he's like the second coming of me, which is the high, big shoes to fill. But
Yeah, high
uh,
praise.
yeah, and I think it's getting closer now. But yeah, I mean, you can't not put Julio in the top 5.
Yeah, there's just like there's some things you can't do, and putting Julio outside your top 5 just doesn't make sense. So this is official. Backseat Banter Jonathan and Backseat Banter Ben do not think DK Metcalf is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. So let's see if he rounds in the top 10. So I named the list of 13 people. Allen Robinson, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin were 11, 12, and 13. So is DK Metcalf better than these 3 guys?
I'd say, well, if you take the players in a vacuum, I think Mike Evans is number one. It has to be a lot higher on this list. But if you're looking at just play, especially this year as well, um, I think he probably could. He's going to get past, I think, Godwin, Allen Robinson. I think, especially with Allen Robinson being on a subpar team, and
Mm-hmm.
Godwin's going to now behind, maybe even behind Antonio Brown. Mike Evans, it's somewhat of a debate because I don't know. I just feel like Mike Evans is such a, I hate to use this word, but just a freak, you know, in the same way that DK is.
Okay.
And I think if you look at play, I would put DK above him, and I think he probably gets into. I think he gets over those 3, and maybe because just a personal preference of Mike Evans over a lot of wide receivers. But yeah, I'd say DK probably gets over, especially if you're looking at play. Then I think he gets over these 3.
Yeah. So for me, DK Metcalf, he's a better receiver than these 3. I don't think it's even close, actually. Godwin has been injury riddled this entire season. He was Jameis Winston's security blanket last season, but this year with Tom Brady, he has fallen into that kind of shadow role behind Mike Evans. Mike Evans is great, but I just feel like DK Metcalf is shining brighter right now, and the Seattle Seahawks use DK Metcalf as their number one receiver. I know Tyler Lockett also eats in that offense, but Mike Evans also tends to find the shadow behind a player like Scotty Miller in some games. So I just can't see myself putting Mike Evans above DK Metcalf. So those would be our 12th, 13th, and 14th players in our top 10 because we made a list, did not include DK Metcalf, and we're seeing where we would put him in. So that rounds out. Is DK Metcalf? So we can round out the top, see if he cracks the top 10. Is he better than Amari Cooper?
I'd say right now, yeah. I mean, Amari Cooper's. I mean, he doesn't have a quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd say right now, just because of how well he's performed, I'd say yeah. In my opinion, yes.
Yeah, to put that one in a quick kind of way, just the sheer size of DK Metcalf and speed alone just makes him more of a reliable number 1 target um, than Amari Cooper. Just Amari Cooper has had a lot of good years, a lot of subpar years, and it's just a weird situation around him always. So even in Oakland, he never found success. But I mean, he had that 1 or 2 good years with Carr, but then fell off, and then they traded him. So okay, DK Metcalf cracks the top 10. He does because we have players like Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, and Stephon Diggs to talk about. Out of those players, is there any player that the second you look at him, you say DK Metcalf is better than them?
Because I know you made this list, so the order might be a little bit off for me, but I would say right now I think DK would probably be better than Keenan Allen, and there's an argument for Diggs. I think Lockett does a lot more in that offense, because since they're on the same team, it's easier to say, okay, Tyler Lockett has more receptions and touchdowns than he does, I believe. So it'd be easier to say DK isn't better than him now.
Mm-hmm.
And someone like Adam Thielen, I mean, not only is his story incredible, but when he's the main receiver, he's unbelievably great. I mean, he's unbelievably, he's had a good year, even on a bad season, even with a bad team, but he's really good. I'd say you can make an argument for Diggs. I think because Diggs isn't, the talent of Diggs maybe just puts him over.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to look at maybe the season, you could have an argument. But I think DK Metcalf probably gets over Keenan Allen.
Okay, so you're saying Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, and Stephon Diggs are all better than DK Metcalf?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, DK Metcalf would be your number 9 receiver in the NFL, cracking the top 10.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you can make the argument for Diggs, but I'd put Diggs just over it.
Okay, for me, we're gonna have some differing opinions here. I just believe Keenan Allen is kind of a better route runner, more reliable number 1, and is also a deep threat with the Chargers. So I feel like Keenan Allen is a little better than DK Metcalf. Adam Thielen for me also gets the nod over DK this season, just because although it's the Seattle high-powered offense, I'm looking at pure receiver role, and Adam Thielen is probably one of the most consistent receivers in the NFL, and it's hard to put boom over consistency. It's like gambling almost. I'm not going to take a player that can blow up one game and then have a dud the next. I'm going to take a player that can consistently, week in and week out, provide something. And Thielen also provides leadership. He provides route running presence, and he's one of the best in the league to do it. This is where it gets interesting for me, with Tyler Lockett and Stephon Diggs coming up. I believe DK Metcalf is the 8th best receiver in the NFL. I believe he is better than Tyler Lockett. I believe he is better than Stephon Diggs. Here's why. I gave you guys the comparison to Tyree Kill about being a speedster, about the shorter size, whatever. Stephon Diggs is great. Stephon Diggs is consistent. But to an extent, DK Metcalf is as well. We've seen it in Minnesota. Stephon Diggs, clutch play after clutch play. He's a great receiver. We've seen it in Buffalo now. Piling up 100-yard games. Hasn't really seen the end zone much, but he's still getting Josh Allen a bunch of yards. The thing here is DK Metcalf gets yards and gets touchdowns and can really moss any DB in front of him. So I'm going to have to put him over Stephon Diggs. And my case for Tyler Lockett is, I don't know if that's Tyler Lockett's wide receiver core anymore. I don't know if he's the true number 1. You said a good point that he is getting a lot of targets, most on the team, most touchdowns on the team. DK Metcalf's drawing more double teams. DK Metcalf's making defenses scared. They're looking towards DK more rather than Tyler Lockett. I know Lockett's not as big of a like just throw it up and grab it threat, but Tyler Lockett is a speedster. He goes deep. He does everything you want in a receiver. I just feel like DK Metcalf is doing more.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, and you want to talk about consistency. DK Metcalf is averaging almost 90 yards a game. I
Mhm.
mean, that's unbelievable for a guy out of his second season. And if I don't like this, but going based off of stats, I think it's kind of a dumb thing. But even though, while saying that, I do, there's Tyler Lockett who it was tied for first with the most touchdowns by a receiver. He has more yards, but by a slim margin to DK. And I think it's one of those things where you said he can moss almost any guy. It's true, he can. I mean, he's unbelievably, he's one of those things where he's just unbelievably athletic. That he has the size, and he's too fast sometimes
Mhm.
to even catch up. Of course, there's the meme of him chasing down, I believe it was
Buda Baker.
Buda
Buda
Baker, yeah, to make sure that they didn't get a pick six. But I mean, he is just, DK Metcalf. I think is the reason why I don't put him up there is just because he's just like, it's his second year, and just to make sure. That's why I said if next year he improves and does more,
Mhm.
there's a good consideration for top five, I would say. But right now, I'd put him at, I believe it's the ninth. I put him at ninth and just over Diggs, because Diggs is able to get a lot of yardage, and he is a very clutch player. I mean, of course, the Minnesota Miracle, which was an unbelievable play. But even
Mhm.
besides that, he's fast. He's able to run routes. He's a really good player. Same thing with Tyler Lockett. Even though I do kind of get to your point that I don't know if it's his team anymore, and I think that he gets a lot of yardage just because of DK.
Yeah.
Because it's more, I think to an extent, it's more difficult to guard someone like a DK Metcalf rather than Tyler Lockett, and drawing double teams would able. I mean, we saw that in, I hate to say this now, but we saw that in the Miami game, that Miami doubled Cooper Kupp, and that led Brandon Cooks wide open. I think the same thing could be happening in Seattle, so I think it's very close with those two. Thielen, I just put over, and I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of Keenan Allen.
No.
I know he's a good route runner. I know he's a deep threat. I just think that I think that for someone like a Justin Herbert, which is his quarterback, it's good to have an experienced guy who's a Pro Bowler, and I think he's a good receiver. I don't know. I think he's somewhat consistent, but for what we've seen of DK Metcalf,
Okay.
I think I'd put DK Metcalf on my team rather than him.
Yeah, you made some really, really solid points there. So that's official. On my wide receiver list, DK Metcalf makes the number 8 mark. On Ben's, he makes the number 9.